Welcome, everyone. Today we're going to do a deep dive into the book, The Glucose Goddess Method. It's
Nice.
by Jesse Inchauspy, and it's all about how food can really impact how we feel,
hmm
energy levels, our overall well-being.
I've heard good things about this book.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. One of the things that it focuses on that I found really fascinating
Okay.
is that this isn't just a book about managing diabetes.
Right.
You know,
It's not.
it talks about that, but she makes a really good argument for the fact that most of us
Uh-huh.
experience these things called glucose spikes, and
Interesting.
they're not doing us any
I
favors.
know I've heard about those,
Yeah.
but I don't really know what they are.
Yeah, so let's break it down a little bit.
Yeah.
The book compares these glucose spikes to kind of like a roller coaster ride for our bodies.
Okay.
And think about it. Have you ever, eaten a meal and then like an hour later you're just like, "Oh my gosh, I need a nap."
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Or you get those intense cravings, where you can't
Well,
focus, you have brain fog. All of that can be tied back to these glucose spikes.
wow.
Yeah, and she does a really good job of highlighting, how significant these spikes can be. And it's
Okay.
not just about weight management, although that can
Right.
be a positive outcome.
Yeah.
But she ties these fluctuations
Right.
to a whole bunch of other things,
Give me some examples.
like gut health.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So the book goes into detail about how the inflammation that's triggered by these frequent spikes can actually contribute to problems like leaky gut.
Oh,
You can get bloating, and it can even make conditions like Crohn's disease worse.
that's scary.
Yeah. And then there's the impact on aging.
Oh,
So it's
God.
kind of unsettling.
Yeah.
But she describes how glycation, and that's a process that's sped up by these spikes,
hmm
is kind of like our bodies are cooking at a faster rate and not in a good way.
I see.
And this can lead to wrinkles, joint problems, and even problems with our organs.
It really makes you think about what you're putting into your body.
Absolutely. And for those who might not be familiar with glycation,
Yeah.
that's basically when sugar molecules kind of glom onto proteins and fats,
hmm
and it basically speeds up the aging process in our bodies.
So it's like internally we're aging faster.
Exactly.
That's kind of freaky.
Yeah, it's a really good reminder that, this goes beyond just a number on a blood test.
Right.
This is stuff that's happening internally
Yeah.
that we might not even realize.
It's like a hidden danger.
Yeah, and so it really begs the question, okay, so if these spikes are so common,
Right.
what can we do about it?
That's the big question.
Yeah, and that's where the glucose goddess method comes in.
Okay.
So she presents four really simple but effective things that anybody can do
Uh-huh.
to help combat these spikes, and they don't require like crazy changes
Okay, good.
or calorie counting or anything like
Okay,
that.
so they're manageable.
Yeah, they're very manageable. And one of the things that was really intriguing to me was the idea of savory breakfasts.
Oh, interesting.
So ditch the sugary cereals and the pastries and all of that.
So no more pancakes in the morning.
Yeah, she makes a really compelling case for how starting your day with a savory breakfast actually sets you up for success,
Interesting.
for more stable glucose throughout the day.
Mm.
And the book is full of these really delicious sounding savory breakfast ideas.
Oh, give me an example.
There's one called the avocado accident, which sounds really interesting, and then prosciutto ricotta figs.
That sounds fancy.
I know, right?
Very sophisticated breakfast.
Yeah, and it really challenges what we traditionally think of as breakfast food.
So it's like expanding our horizons.
Exactly.
I like that.
Okay, so let's move on to another one of these hacks.
Okay.
And this one might surprise you. It's vinegar.
Vinegar.
Really?
I know, right? I was skeptical at first.
Yeah, like salad dressing vinegar.
Yeah, but the research behind it is really compelling. So, studies have shown that just 1 tablespoon of vinegar can reduce the blood sugar spike from a meal by 30%.
That's a lot. I know it sounds almost too good to be true.
How does that work?
So she explains that vinegar contains acetic acid,
Okay.
and that acetic acid slows down the breakdown of sugars and starches into glucose.
So it's like it's slowing down that process.
Yeah, it's like putting the brakes on that rapid glucose surge.
Interesting.
Yeah. And the best part is it's so easy to incorporate.
Okay.
So she recommends aiming for about a tablespoon a day.
Okay.
And she gives you a bunch of different ways to do it. So there's like the GG Classic, which is just diluted vinegar.
Okay.
But then there's more interesting things like a ginger giant or mother apple spritzer.
Those sound a lot more appealing.
Yeah, and she even has like an emotional support water bottle idea.
Oh, like you just carry it around with you?
Exactly, it's infused with vinegar.
So you can sip on it throughout the day.
Yeah, it's a really discreet way to kind of get your vinegar in.
I like it.
Okay, so let's talk about hack number 3, This one is all about veggie starters. So the idea is to front load your meals with vegetables, and that creates what she calls a fiber mesh in your stomach.
Okay.
And that mesh acts like a barrier. So it slows down how quickly glucose enters your bloodstream.
Interesting.
And again, it doesn't have to be boring salads. She's got over 30 veggie starter recipes.
Oh, wow. She's thought of everything.
Yeah, everything from just simple raw veggies to things like chimichurri cauliflower or crispy kale.
Now those sound good.
I know, right? So it's about making it enjoyable.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so the fourth and final hack, this one is all about movement after meals.
Okay. I can get behind that.
Yeah, so basically the idea is that you do some light physical activity
Okay.
after you eat,
Uh-huh.
and that helps your muscles to absorb some of the excess glucose.
So it's like giving it somewhere to go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be intense workouts.
Yeah.
She recommends just like a 10-minute walk or even just doing some calf raises at your desk.
Yeah, just get up and move.
Exactly.
That's good advice.
Yeah. And it's a great reminder that every little bit counts.
I like how simple it is.
Right.
It doesn't have to be this big ordeal.
Exactly. And so these 4 hacks together, they create this really powerful synergy
Yeah.
that can really make a difference in your glucose levels
Mm-hmm.
and overall health.
That's awesome.
And one of the things that I really appreciate about her method is that it's not about being rigid.
Okay.
It's about embracing these changes
Yeah.
and, gradually making improvements.
Sustainable changes.
Exactly. So in part 2 of our deep dive, we're going to take a closer look at each of these hacks and really break them down.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, so welcome back to our exploration of the Glucose Goddess method. We're going to dig a little deeper into those 4 hacks.
Okay. Sounds good.
And I think we should start with the one that was maybe most surprising to me.
Okay.
Savory breakfasts.
Mm.
I'll be honest. I was a little resistant at first. The thought of giving up my toast and jam felt like a big sacrifice.
I can see that. I think a lot of us have been conditioned to think of breakfast as sweet.
Right, it's like ingrained in us.
But Inkowski really makes a good case for changing that mindset.
So she talks about how those typical Western breakfasts, cereal, pancakes, pastries, all of that,
Yeah.
send our glucose levels through the roof.
And then what happens?
And then, of course, we crash. We're tired and we're hungry and we want more sugar.
Right. It's a vicious cycle.
It is, and a lot of us are stuck in it without even realizing it.
So how does a savory breakfast help?
Well, the idea is that by choosing savory options, we break that cycle.
Okay.
And we set ourselves up for more stable glucose and sustained energy throughout the day.
Makes sense.
And it's not about deprivation.
Right.
She's not saying never have sweet treats again.
Okay, good.
It's more about timing.
So when should we have them?
She suggests having dessert after lunch or dinner,
Interesting.
when our bodies are better equipped to handle that influx of glucose.
So it's all about being strategic.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
what are some examples of savory breakfast foods?
Well, the key is to focus on protein, fat, and fiber. And
I like it. And how much vinegar are we talking about?
she recommends about a tablespoon a day.
Okay, that seems doable.
And she gives you a bunch of different ways to get it in.
Like what?
Well, there's the Gigi Classic, which is basically just diluted vinegar and water.
Okay, simple enough.
But then there's more fun options like Ginger Giant or Mother Apple Spritzer.
Those sound more appealing.
I know, right? And
Why?
if you're looking for a way to discreetly get your vinegar in, she suggests an emotional support water bottle.
Okay, so you just infuse your water with vinegar.
Exactly.
Clever.
Okay, so let's move on to hack number 3, veggie starters.
Veggie starters. This is all about the power of fiber.
Right, so we're front-loading our meals with vegetables.
And why do we do that?
It creates what she calls a fiber mesh in your stomach.
A fiber mesh. I like the sound of that.
It acts like a barrier that slows down how quickly glucose enters your bloodstream.
This is like a protective shield.
Exactly, and this is where those 30-plus veggie starter recipes come in.
Okay, so it's not just about eating salads. No, she's got everything from simple raw veggies to more elaborate dishes.
Like what?
Lazy tzatziki sounds really refreshing. Or harissa broccoli if you like a little spice.
Oh, I love harissa.
See, there's something for everyone.
Okay, so veggie starters are in... What about the last hack?
Movement after meals.
Yes, getting our bodies moving.
So the idea is to do some light physical activity after you eat.
And that helps our muscles absorb some of that glucose.
Exactly. So it's not about intense workouts. Just a 10-minute walk or even some calf raises at your desk.
Just get the blood flowing.
Right. And it's a good reminder that every little bit of movement counts.
So these 4 hacks all working together, they really can make a big impact on our glucose levels.
and our overall health. But one of the things I really appreciate about this method is that it's not about being perfect.
It's about making sustainable changes.
Exactly. So in the last part of our deep dive, we'll talk about the long-term benefits of the glucose goddess method and look at some real-life examples of how it's helped people.
Sounds good. I'm excited to hear more.
And welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into the glucose goddess method. Yeah. So we talked about, those pesky glucose spikes, and we've explored these 4 hacks that can help us stabilize our blood sugar.
Uh-huh.
But now I want to look beyond those initial 4 weeks and think about the long term.
Okay.
What happens when we start incorporating these habits into our everyday lives? And one thing that really struck me when we were prepping for this episode
Yeah.
was just how many positive testimonials there are from people who have tried this method.
It's really encouraging to see how these small changes can have such a big impact.
Right. And people are reporting improvements in all sorts of areas, like their energy levels, their sleep, even their mood and skin health.
It's amazing how stabilizing glucose can have this ripple effect.
Yeah, it's like it touches every aspect of our well-being.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that a lot of people mentioned was that they experience fewer cravings.
Oh, that's huge, especially for people who struggle with sugar cravings.
Right. It's like by addressing those underlying glucose imbalances, you're actually taking back control of your food choices.
That makes sense.
And then another common theme was better sleep.
Oh, interesting.
People were falling asleep easier, staying asleep longer, waking up feeling more rested.
I could definitely use some of that.
I know, right? And it makes sense when you think about it. When our blood sugar is stable throughout the night, we're less likely to experience those dips that can wake us up.
Right, those middle of the night wake-ups.
Exactly.
So stabilizing glucose can actually help us sleep better.
It can.
Yeah.
And a lot of people also reported feeling less anxious and more emotionally balanced.
Well, that makes sense too when you consider how much those glucose fluctuations can affect our hormones.
Right, those rapid ups and downs can really throw our systems out of whack.
So by smoothing out those glucose curves, we're creating a more stable internal environment.
Exactly, and that can have a huge impact on our mental and emotional state.
And we can't forget about the potential benefits for our skin.
Right, several people mentioned that their skin looked healthier, and Inchauspy explains that this is because reducing those glucose spikes can actually slow down glycation.
Oh, right. Glycation, that process that contributes to wrinkles and aging.
Exactly. So it's another reminder that taking care of our insides can also show up on the outside.
It's all connected.
It really is. And I think what all of these testimonials really highlight is that the glucose goddess method isn't just a quick fix.
It's a lifestyle change.
Right. It's about making sustainable changes that can benefit us for years to come.
And I think it's important to remember that it's not about being perfect.
Absolutely. She encourages us to aim for consistency, but also to be kind to ourselves when we slip up.
Because let's face it, we all slip up sometimes.
We do. Life happens. There are going to be times when we eat things that aren't exactly glucose friendly.
And that's okay.
The key is to not beat ourselves up about it and just get back on track.
She says that sticking to the hacks even 80% of the time can still make a big difference.
Right. So it's a very forgiving approach, which makes it much more sustainable in the long run.
I like that.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the glucose goddess method, I'd like to leave you with a few questions to think about.
Okay.
What part of this method resonated with you the most?
Good question.
Which hack are you most excited to try?
And how can you approach this journey with a sense of curiosity and self-compassion?
Be willing to experiment and see what works for you.
Because this method really does offer a path towards better health and well-being.
It does, and it empowers us to make choices that support our bodies.
So before we go, how about we do a quick recap of the key takeaways?
Sounds good.
Okay, so number 1, most of us experience blood glucose spikes.
Number 2, those spikes are linked to a whole host of health problems, from sleep issues to premature aging to gut issues.
Number 3, the 4 main hacks are savory breakfasts, vinegar veggie starters, and movement after meals.
Number 4, savory breakfasts help us avoid that big glucose spike first thing in the morning.
Number 5, vinegar with its acetic acid can really help lower those post-meal spikes.
Number 6, veggie starters create that fiber mesh that slows down glucose absorption.
Number 7, moving after meals helps our muscles use up some of that glucose.
Number 8, it's not about being perfect. Aiming for 80% consistency is a great goal.
Number 9, weight loss is often a positive side effect of stabilizing glucose.
And number 10, when our glucose is stable, we're less likely to experience those intense cravings and we can make more conscious food choices.
Exactly. So if you want to learn more about the glucose goddess method, be sure to check out Jesse and Chosby's book. It's got all the details, the recipes, and even information about joining a supportive community.
And that's it for our deep dive. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.